Okay, so today in this video, we are going to start our new unit, unit number 3 on exploration and conquest. But before we start, I want you to take a moment to pause the video when I finish speaking and go get your pink notebook and a pen so that you can take notes while you're watching this presentation. So pause the video now. Okay, so now that you have your note-taking equipment, I want you to give your note a title. The title should be Introduction to Unit 3, Exploration and Conquest. So what does it mean to explore? To explore means to travel in order to discover new things. And what does conquest mean? Conquest means to acquire by force or with effort. So this unit is going to be about discovery and taking over. So how Europeans discovered a lot of the world and took it over. So just to start, did you know that about 1,000 years ago, if you lived in Britain, you would not have had access to any of these foods that you see on this slide? In fact, they're not native to Europe at all. Do you guys know what native means? Native means the place of origin, the place where something came into being. So none of these foods started in Europe. So you might be wondering, where do they come from? Because I know that British people love tea and they like to have sugar in their tea. And Thai people, for example, they love peppers, but peppers weren't discovered in Thailand. So where did they all come from? Well, sugar comes from India. Potatoes come from South America, specifically Peru. Corn comes from Mexico. So the Mayans and the Olmecs domesticated that. Coffee comes from Africa, specifically Ethiopia. Turkeys were first found in North America. Tea comes from the region on the border between China and Burma. Peppers, these kind of peppers, bell peppers, as well as chili peppers, were all originated in South America. Rice comes from China. Bananas from Southeast Asia. And cinnamon, well, there are many different kinds of cinnamon. The kind that we normally eat comes from Sri Lanka. So you might be wondering, how did these things reach all over the world? Why do they drink tea in Britain? Why do we have sugar in Thailand? Well, starting about 500 years ago, just over 500 years ago, in the 16th century, Europeans started to explore the world. And they moved away from medieval Europe, where they just stayed in Europe, and they started exploring all over the world. So you can see, if you follow my cursor, which is up right now in the upper right-hand corner, that Marco Polo, he did start, I'm sure you've heard of him, he did start exploring in the late 1200s. However, he went into China, around through India, and back to Venice. However, things really don't get started until the 16th century, and things really kick off with Christopher Columbus. You can see my mouse on it again. In 1492 to 1493, he is sailing to Cuba in the Caribbean and back to Portugal. So that is one of the very first voyages of discovery. So at this time, with all of these voyages of discovery, Europe is moving away from being a medieval agricultural society. You remember from our previous unit that most medieval people were farmers, and they were just farming the land and getting enough food for them to survive, as well as giving food to the church and things like that. So they're moving away from agriculture, and Europe is moving to a commercial and industrial society. So commercial means buying and selling, trading things. So Europe is buying things all over the world and then trading it. and also moving to an industrial society, which means manufacturing. It means taking the raw cotton, for example, and turning it into a t-shirt. So lots of manufacturing was going on in Europe after the voyages of discovery. This also leads Europe to have a lot of contact with non-European peoples. They're meeting people from all over the place. And later on, we get the development of colonies. So what is a colony? A colony is when a group of people leave their home country, their native country, in order to set up a settlement in a new and foreign land. So you start to see people from Europe moving from England to North America, or moving from Spain and setting up a colony in the Philippines. So you start to see this after the voyages of discovery in the 16th century. This is a very important time for European history and world history in general. So now let's take a look at a typical explorer. Here is Ferdinand Magellan. Ferdinand Magellan was Spanish. He thought that he could find a passage to Asia through America. So there were lots of people, lots of Europeans traveling around the Atlantic Ocean. And Magellan thought that he could find a way to get to Asia find a passage through the Americas into Asia. And he convinces the King of Spain to pay for his trip. And on August 10th, 1519, he set sail in the Atlantic with 5 ships and a crew of 277 Spanish men. And they set sail from Spain, and they have a very rough crossing across the Atlantic. You can follow along with my cursor. And they start traveling down the coast of South America. And his ship captains thought that he was crazy. They thought that this is a direct quote, on the flame of his ambition, he will crucify us all. So basically, they thought that he was so wanting to find this passage to Asia that he would sacrifice his life as well as his crew's life. At last, in October of 1520, he does find the passage to the Pacific Ocean. And it's right here at the very southern tip of South America. It's called the Straits of Magellan today. So this is named after Magellan. And he thought that it would be just a very short hop, skip, and a jump through the Pacific Ocean to the Spice Islands in Asia. But he was wrong. And it took because the Pacific Ocean is very big, it took weeks upon weeks of not seeing very much land. And his crew was suffering a lot. According to one account, when their last biscuit had gone, they scraped the maggots out of the casks, mashed them, and served them as gruel. They made cakes out of sawdust soaked with the urine of rats. The rats themselves, as delicacies, had long since been hunted to extinction. So they were starving, basically. And they go all across the Pacific Ocean, all the way over here, and they reach the Philippines eventually. The Philippines, by the way, is actually named after King Philip II of Spain, the same man who sponsored and financed Ferdinand Magellan's trip. Unfortunately, Magellan was killed by native people in Southeast Asia, so he never made it back home to Spain. However, he is remembered as the first person to circumnavigate the world. So circumnavigate means to navigate, to find his way around the circumference of the world. So he is the first person to go all the way around the world in a circle. So Magellan is a kind of typical explorer. So now we're going to go on to the essential questions for this unit. These are the 4 questions that we're going to make sure we answer by the end of the unit. So the first question is, why did Europeans begin to embark on voyages of discovery and expansion at the end of the 15th century? The second question is, how did European countries affect the places that they explored, conquered, and colonized? The third question, what are the main features of the African slave trade, and what effects did it have on Africa? And finally, what effects of this period of exploration are still visible in the world today? So those are the 4 questions we're going to answer. And finally, I have an activity and a little quiz for you. So first, I want you to take a close look at the map provided. So this map here with the big pink, purple, blue, and green arrows. Second, I want you to Google any of the words you do not understand that are found on that map. And third, I want you to go to the Year 7 History page and take the practice quiz entitled Unit 3, Quiz 1. You're going to have a real quiz in class, but I want you to take a practice quiz today. I will be able to see your results once you've taken the quiz. Okay, that's it for now. I'll zoom in on this map for you. Remember, you can always go back and watch more of the video because the quiz will cover everything in this video. See you later. Bye.